Well, I think you can see that I've got on a coat. I think you can see the wind is blowing, but you don't know that the temperature might be 42 degrees. But we're gonna plant tomatoes, and Mike Smith has dreamed up something for all of you men that like to brag about, guess what? I had a ripe tomato by the 4th of July. You're out of date. Mike Smith, up here on the top of this mountain in Cook, will tell us, what in the world were you thinking when you dreamed this up?
Well, I love tomatoes. I love tomatoes. My grandchildren love tomatoes. We plant tomatoes every year. My aunt came here from Michigan, and she brought a thing called a water wall, or a wall of water. I'm not sure. And I looked at it and I thought, well, I've got to do something. So I got me a 5-gallon bucket and I took the bottom out of it. I planted my plant in the garden, set the bucket down around it, put a lid on it, and it froze the tomato. But then the next year, I had to wait a whole nother year to do it again.
That's right. If you mess up,
the next year, I planted the tomato, put the same bucket around it. I put dirt all around the bucket, so it looked kind of like a volcano with a tomato in the middle. And then when it got cold at night, I put a piece of plywood on top of the bucket, and that kept the cold air out. So since then, just about every year, I have tomatoes on June the 1st, and I have had tomatoes the last couple of weeks in May.
Okay, I believe you. You've got pictures to prove it.
I have pictures. I have a plant that is 6 foot tall on June 1st.
Oh my goodness. Okay, start us out.
All right, I'm gonna.
Tell me what you got.
I've got Early Girl and German Johnson tomatoes. These are some of my favorite tomatoes.
German Johnson's the best.
It's a good tomato, it is. And I took this pipe, made some cuts in it with the saw, so that this pipe is for feeding and for watering.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put the plant down in here, plant it like I always do.
So that hole was about, what, 12 inches deep that you dug?
It was about 12 inches deep.
Okay.
And it's gonna be a little lower than the normal landscape, the grade of the land.
Yeah.
But then I'm gonna take the bucket and put here, push it down good.
So now, when you put that bucket on there initially, do you have a depth that you really want it to be?
The bucket, I just want to make sure it seals around the dirt that's around it. So
and it to be stable.
I don't want water coming in.
You want it to be stable.
And it doesn't fall over.
Right.
And so I'm going to take some dirt and pull up around the bucket. So when I finish, it's kind of look like a volcano with a tomato in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I'm left-handed. Left-handed people got to stand on the other side.
Well, that's all right. Puts us on the right sides here.
But yeah, I'll pull these on up.
Okay, I can see now that you've got a thermal thing going on here, insulation.
Right. And it probably would be better to use some kind of mulch or compost.
Why do you say that?
Well, I think it would keep more cold air off. It's more, dirt's not as insulating as...
Well, you could put straw or burlap.
You could take straw or burlap or anything and wrap around this. As this plant grows, and it will grow, I could take the plant by the leaves, hold it, take dirt and drop around it.
Well, and that's like
grows.
healing up. You know, when I plant tomatoes that are too tall, I lay them on the ground and let the sun bring their heads up, and then I lay them in a row, and that's the same thing, isn't it?
It's the same thing. The more of that plant body that's in the ground, there's more roots. The plant will receive more food that way.
So you're going to just bring the roots up from the bottom up to the top.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And see, I may even have to take the bucket and lift the bucket because that plant will grow.
Oh,
and
okay.
I've had them grow higher than the bucket.
Oh, so my question now is, you actually leave this bucket in there for the whole growing season?
No. As soon as the time of frost and freeze is gone, which would probably be in May, second week of May or something. Because last year, everybody planted their tomatoes and they got froze.
Yeah.
I had tomatoes.
We know, and I know where you live now. Okay.
I had tomatoes, but I will pull this bucket up and all that soil will fall down around the plant just like you healed it that way.
Okay, now you've got it planted, and I know what eventually you'll top it off with. Let's talk about your pipe over here. What are you going to do? How do you utilize this pipe?
Well, that's my feeding and watering pipe.
Okay.
And what I normally do, I feed and water about 2 times a week.
Okay.
About 2 times a week. But I'll take...
Now I see this analysis is a 19-19-19.
Yeah, that's...
Does it matter?
That's it. A lot of people don't like to use as much nitrogen in theirs, but we're not making this very strong. This is going to be very weak.
Because you're diluting it, I know.
Yeah, I'm going to dilute it pretty heavily.
All right, so you put that in this bucket.
Yes, and then I will take some of that out of that bucket.
So how long do you keep it in this bucket of water before you use it to dissolve it?
I'll let that dissolve a couple of days.
Yeah.
And see, probably what I'll do is like this. That stirs it up.
Yeah.
And then I'll stir it back in the other bucket.
Now you're mixing process.
I'm mixing it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dirt and stuff in there.
That's okay. There's some of your...
See there? It's fertilized. It's not diluted yet.
Yeah.
And all of that won't dilute because there are some solid materials in fertilizer that don't
dissolve.
They don't dissolve.
Which one of them?
I think it's lime. I think they put some lime in the fertilizer.
Oh.
But now this water here has already been mixed and has
ready
already
to
been
go.
diluted. So what I will do is
So
I will
that's
take
percentage-wise water that's already got the fertilizer in it. The regular water plain water, you're going to just add.
Right. I'm gonna add like about that much of the mixture in here.
That's about 2 quarts, maybe.
Yeah, about 2 quarts. And then I'll pour it in a bucket.
Yeah.
And I'll fill it full of water.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's what this is.
That's regular water.
And I already made it up because I let that dissolve already. So it's already dissolved.
Oh, okay.
And I'll take some.
Okay.
And go over here and I pour it in the pipe.
And then those little vents that you put in it distributes it to the sides instead of it all going down into the ground.
Right.
In the bottom.
Right. And I'm not watering any fungus that's on the ground level. I'm putting water straight to the root. I think it helps reduce disease.
Yeah.
It may not get rid of all the disease, but it at least helps it. And I think if you once you pull this up and you want to put felt down, you could.
Yeah.
You could to keep the splashback from happening. That splashback is what distributes that disease. Yeah. After I water and this plant grows, once it's past the time of frost, then I will pull the bucket out.
Yeah.
And all that soil falls around. And the plant at that time is large enough to put a cage on. Now I wouldn't put a cage over this bucket like that, but I would put it over and around the plant. This cage is made from concrete reinforcing wire, and you can get a roll of it for, I don't know, $130, something like that. You can make about 28 cages from this. And what you want to do is cut the pieces 5 foot long off the roll. So you will end up with a cage this big around,
right,
and 5 feet tall.
And I love these cages because your hand reaches in there to get those good old tomatoes, don't they?
Yeah, you can get in there and get them. They're 6 inches by 6 inches square.
And they're sturdy.
And they are. I've used this one for many years. Okay, tonight it's going to get cold, and tomorrow it's going to be cold. It's going to snow. So I will put this lid on there. It's about 1 inch thick plywood. You can use just about any kind of plywood, but that will keep the cold air off. Now, it doesn't just keep the cold air off. If it's going to rain a lot, like if they say it's going to rain an inch, I will put this lid on it, and that will push all the water away so it doesn't fill the bucket full of water. If it's going to be 70, 73 degrees, this lid is going to be removed. It'll be laying here.
Okay.
And that's all the work you have to do. It's not really work.
Yeah.
So, and I only do about 8 to 10 plants per year this way.
Yeah. Well, it's a process, and while the rest of them are getting planted, these are preparing to be ripened. So I understand this could become a good hobby to have. So they've had 21 days.
And they're growing. They're growing. Let's go on over here and look at these over here. Let's do these right here.
Okay.
These two.
Oh my goodness.
Now, some of those I have little bitty tiny plants in. I'm just growing them.
Yes.
These plants are growing. They already have established a root.
Yes.
And they have grown since I put them in there. Matter of fact, This one, I've already taken and grabbed it and put dirt around it. I put about 3 inches of dirt around that plant already. And it has grown that much. It's actually grown about 5 inches. That was a small plant like the one I just planted.
I am so excited to, number one, by the enthusiasm you put off into what you have dreamed up here. And I just know that to be able to say that I had a ripe tomato in the end of May or the 1st of June, I mean, that's unprecedented.
Yeah, I look for a tomato plant the 1st of March.
I'm not so sure that I might not try one of these in my own garden.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel and like us on Facebook.